A brand new Escalade, sticker price nearly $100,000, 9,000 miles on the odometer. The owner pulled over on the highway, smoke pouring from under the hood, engine knocking, completely dead. GM recalled 600,000 of these. Federal investigators just reopened the case because the official fix didn't actually work. That's just number one. 12 SUV engines total, all still sitting on dealer lots right now. And one of them might already be parked in your driveway. We're counting up. Let's go. Number 12, Chevrolet Equinox 2.4-liter LEA. The 2.4-liter LEA four-cylinder fitted to the Chevrolet Equinox and GMC Terrain across multiple generations has earned a reputation among independent mechanics severe enough that entire repair shops dedicate standing TikTok content specifically to walking through its timing chain replacement procedure. GM's own technical service bulletins acknowledge oil consumption, timing, chain stretch, and piston ring problems as documented patterns rather than isolated complaints, and the company has quietly extended engine warranty coverage on certain model years, specifically because the failure rate was high enough to warrant it. The mechanical story is almost mundane in how predictable it's become. Piston rings fail to seal properly against the cylinder walls, oil burns faster than it should, and the timing chain, which GM never designed with a scheduled replacement interval in mind, stretches and rattles its way toward failure, typically somewhere between 80,000 and 120,000 miles. One owner posting in a dedicated Equinox forum thread asked plainly whether replacing the chain preemptively at 77,000 miles made sense, a question that wouldn't exist if the part were genuinely built to last the engine's full lifespan. Consumer Reports' own subscriber survey data on multiple Equinox model years lists engine rebuild, head gasket, and timing chain complaints among the documented trouble spots tracked across owner-reported issues, confirming the pattern isn't just forum anecdote. Out-of-warranty repairs run $3,000 or more for a full engine replacement, a brutal number for a compact SUV that was supposed to be the affordable, low-drama choice in its segment. But a stretched timing chain on an aging four-cylinder is a known quantity. The next engine on this list has an active lawsuit running right now in 2026 over the exact same fundamental complaint. Number 11, Volkswagen Tiguan 2.0-liter EA888 TSI. The EA888 TSI, Volkswagen's workhorse turbocharged four-cylinder fitted across the Tiguan and several other VW and Audi models, is currently the subject of an active 2026 class action lawsuit alleging the engine burns through oil at a rate that goes well beyond normal wear. Plaintiffs specifically argue that insufficient piston ring tension lets oil seep into the combustion chamber where it builds up as carbon deposits and accelerates engine wear faster than the design was ever supposed to allow. A federal judge has already rejected Volkswagen's argument that plaintiffs failed to prove their vehicles would burn excessive oil in the future, allowing the case to proceed specifically because the underlying mechanical flaw remains baked into engines currently rolling off the assembly line. That's the genuinely uncomfortable detail here. The 2026 Tiguan still uses this exact engine, meaning a brand new SUV purchased today carries the same documented design flaw currently being litigated in federal court. The same EA888 family separately settled a turbocharger failure lawsuit covering model years 2008 through 2024 just months ago, tied to wastegate corrosion, meaning this single engine platform has now generated two distinct, serious legal actions covering two entirely different failure modes. Owners filing complaints with the court have specifically described topping off oil between scheduled changes far more frequently than Volkswagen's own maintenance schedule would ever suggest is normal. But an active lawsuit over oil consumption is genuinely concerning. The next engine on this list has no recall at all, despite owners reporting complete engine failure as low as 54,000 miles. Number 10, Land Rover Discovery Sport 2.0 Ingenium Diesel. The 2.0-liter Ingenium Diesel, fitted to the Discovery Sport, Range Rover Evoque, and several Jaguar models since 2015, hides its timing chain at the rear of the engine rather than the front, a design choice that means accessing it requires significant disassembly, and early warning signs go unnoticed for considerably longer than on a conventional layout. The chains stretch prematurely, typically somewhere between 60,000 and 80,000 miles, well before any reasonable owner would expect a timing component to need attention. One Discovery Sport owner, posting in a dedicated forum thread titled simply about their engine failing, described the moment plainly, still technically under warranty, but Land Rover local garage need to strip engine first to fully diagnose problem, but are saying new engine needed, as timing chain seems to have snapped. Another owner in the same thread reported a nearly identical failure at 70,000 miles despite full dealer service history, while a third described a quote near 15,000 pounds to repair a chain that snapped at just 54,000 miles. Consumer Reports has historically rated multiple Land Rover models among the least reliable vehicles surveyed, a brand-wide pattern that tracks directly with the engine-specific complaints surfacing repeatedly across independent forums. Despite a documented pattern severe enough that one forum poster referenced an active class action lawsuit against Jaguar, specifically over this defect, Jaguar Land Rover has issued no formal recall, leaving owners to absorb repair costs that frequently exceed the value of an aging Discovery Sport entirely. But no recall despite documented failures is troubling. The next engine on this list already triggered a 100,000 vehicle recall specifically because it can catch fire while you're driving. Number 9, Jeep Wrangler and Grand Cherokee 2.0-liter turbo. Jeep's 2.0-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder fitted across the Wrangler and Grand Cherokee triggered a major recall in late 2025, covering roughly 100,000 vehicles specifically because documented defects could lead to catastrophic engine failure, or, in the worst cases, actual engine fires while the vehicle was being driven. Beyond that recall, independent reports describe head gasket failures, cracked cylinder liners, damaged pistons, and persistent oil and coolant leaks across the same engine family. Stellantis has quietly begun introducing a revised version of this 2.0-liter turbo for the 2026 Grand Cherokee specifically, a tacit acknowledgement that the original design needed fixing rather than simply servicing. Until that revised engine accumulates enough real-world miles to prove itself genuinely reliable, the original version remains a powertrain-independent mechanics actively steer customers away from. The Wrangler's plug-in hybrid 4xe variant has compounded the brand's engine-adjacent reputation problems further, with multiple separate recalls covering high-voltage battery packs that can fail internally and ignite, including one owner's documented account of their 4xe's electric mode failing entirely within weeks of receiving the official battery software update meant to fix exactly that problem. Consumer Reports has consistently ranked Jeep among the lowest-scoring brands in its annual reliability survey, a ranking that owners citing engine fires and battery recalls would likely have little trouble believing. But fire risk recalls on a current production engine are genuinely alarming. The next engine on this list just triggered an identical recall on one of America's best-selling SUVs for the exact same underlying defect. Number 8, Ford Explorer 2.3-liter EcoBoost. Ford issued a fresh safety recall covering select 2026 Explorer and Mustang vehicles equipped with the 2.3-liter EcoBoost engine, specifically because cylinder head ball plugs can be expelled from the cylinder head under normal oil pressure during operation, resulting in an oil leak severe enough to create a genuine fire risk if that leaking oil contacts hot exhaust components. The same recall simultaneously covered 2.0-liter EcoBoost engines in the Maverick and Lincoln Corsair, meaning Ford's turbocharged engine family triggered 2 related recalls under a single notice. This isn't an isolated, one-time engineering slip. Ford's EcoBoost lineup, spanning the 1.5-liter, 1.6-liter, 2.0-liter, and 3.5-liter variants, has accumulated documented issues stretching back to 2011, impacting tens of thousands of customers across the F150, Escape, Fusion, Edge, and multiple Lincoln models along the way. The specific failure mode on this newest recall is genuinely severe. A loss of oil pressure can cause complete engine seizure and total loss of power while driving, increasing crash risk independent of the fire hazard entirely. Ford says it isn't aware of any reported accidents or injuries tied to this specific defect yet. Language that reads considerably more reassuring before remembering the recall exists precisely because the failure mode is real and documented. Affected owners are advised to check their VIN directly against the recall notice, since build date windows for the Explorer specifically narrow the actual number of trucks genuinely at risk. But a 2026 model year recall on a current SUV is bad. The next engine on this list has already been recalled twice in less than a year, covering well over 1 million vehicles combined. Number 7, Nissan Rogue 5C Turbo 1.5-liter, Nissan's variable compression 1.5-liter turbocharged 3-cylinder, the flagship engine technology fitted to the Rogue, triggered a massive recall covering roughly 500,000 vehicles in mid-2025 over documented reported engine failure concerns. Nissan doubled down in February 2026 with a second, separate recall covering more than 650,000 additional vehicles for the exact same underlying issue, meaning over 1 million Rogues now carry a documented, twice-recalled engine defect within less than 12 months. The mechanical root cause is genuinely specific and genuinely serious. Extremely high oil temperatures inside this variable compression design cause the oil itself to break down chemically far faster than a conventional engine. And once that degraded oil can no longer properly lubricate the engine bearings, those bearings seize entirely, effectively bricking the motor mid-drive. Because of its small displacement and the added thermal stress that variable compression and turbocharging both independently introduce, this engine was already operating at the edge of its thermal limits even before the oil breakdown pattern compounded the problem further. Nissan's own variable compression technology was marketed as a genuine engineering breakthrough when it launched. 2 recalls and over 1 million affected vehicles later, it's instead become the textbook example of innovation outrunning durability testing. Consumer Reports has flagged Nissan specifically for below-average predicted reliability scores across recent model years, a rating that aligns directly with the scale of this particular engine's recall history. But 1 million-plus vehicles recalled twice is severe. The next engine on this list cost 2 entire car companies over $2 billion combined, and it's still under federal scrutiny in 2026. Number 6. Hyundai and Kia Theta. 2.0 liters and 2.4 liters. The Theta 2.4-cylinder, fitted across an enormous range of Hyundai and Kia sedans and SUVs, including the Santa Fe, Tucson, Sportage, and Sorento, has generated more than 60 individual recalls tied specifically to vehicle fire risk, stretching back over a decade and continuing to surface new affected vehicles even now. The root defect involves premature connecting rod bearing wear, where manufacturing debris left inside the engine during production restricts oil flow, causing friction to build until a connecting rod can actually puncture the engine block entirely. A Hyundai safety engineer eventually became a whistleblower specifically because the company delayed action despite knowing about the defect internally for years, a disclosure that helped trigger federal investigation, and ultimately a settlement now estimated to have cost Hyundai and Kia combined more than $2 billion in fines, lawsuit payouts, engine replacements, and extended warranty coverage. That settlement extended affected engines to a 15-year, 150,000-mile warranty specifically for connecting rod bearing failure, a transferable benefit that follows the vehicle to subsequent owners, which tells you everything about how long the companies expect this specific failure mode to keep surfacing. One owner describing the early warning signs in a forum post noted the exact symptom pattern Hyundai's own recall notices later confirmed: a knocking sound that started subtly during cold starts and grew progressively louder over several weeks before the engine finally seized completely. If a punctured engine block leaks oil onto a hot exhaust component, the documented result is exactly what the recalls describe: smoke, and in the worst documented cases, an actual vehicle fire. But a $2 billion engine scandal with a 15-year warranty extension is genuinely staggering. The next engine on this list triggered its own class action settlement, and it's still sitting under the hood of full-size SUVs on dealer lots today. Number 5, GM Ecotec 3LC9 5.3 liters V8. GM's Generation 4 LC9 V8. Installed across full-size trucks and SUVs including early Cadillac Escalade, Chevrolet Tahoe, and Suburban, and GMC Yukon models built between 2011 and 2014, shipped with an inherently defective piston ring assembly that caused excessive oil consumption from the factory. Over time, that consumption pattern led to spark plug fouling, rough idling, persistent check engine lights, sudden engine shutdown commands, and in a meaningful number of documented cases, permanent and total engine damage. The class action settlement covering this engine, known formally as the Siqueiros settlement, with a separate parallel settlement covering Oklahoma residents specifically, guarantees affected owners no less than $2,149 each, with average payouts exceeding $3,300 per vehicle. That settlement exists because GM's own active fuel management system, originally introduced specifically to boost fuel economy by shutting down cylinders under light load, created uneven wear directly on the piston rings and cylinder walls every single time it activated and deactivated, meaning the fuel-saving technology GM marketed as a genuine advantage was simultaneously degrading the engine's own internals from day one. Owners reported having to add oil between scheduled changes at rates one settlement description called genuinely alarming, a symptom serious enough that it became the entire basis for the legal claim. Independent mechanics handling these older Escalades and Tahoes today routinely warn prospective used buyers to specifically check for blue exhaust smoke on startup, since that single visible symptom remains the clearest field indicator that the original piston ring defect has already begun consuming oil at an accelerated, costly rate. But a settled class action from a decade-old engine generation feels almost historical. The next engine on this list is current. It's in production right now, and it's already failed 270,000 times. Number 4, Toyota V35AFTS twin-turbo V6. Toyota's V35AFTS twin-turbocharged V6 fitted to the Tundra, Sequoia, and the Lexus LX and GX SUVs is currently the subject of a recall campaign that has grown across 3 separate filings rather than being resolved cleanly in one action, with the most recent expansion, issued in May 2026, adding tens of thousands of additional engines to a list that already exceeds 270,000 vehicles total. Machining debris left inside the engine during production has been identified as the likely root cause, contaminating oil passages and accelerating wear on critical rotating components inside the engine. Here's the detail that should genuinely worry anyone shopping for one of these SUVs right now. Toyota has only completed full engine replacements on roughly 77,000 of those 270,000 plus affected vehicles, meaning more than 70% of recalled vehicles remain out on the road today with the defects still present. Making the situation considerably worse, Toyota has acknowledged that many vehicles repaired under the original first wave of this recall were fixed using parts that were themselves defective, meaning those owners will need to bring their SUV back to the dealership for an entirely separate second repair. The failure pattern documented in owner reports and technical filings is genuinely severe, engine knocking, bearing wear, and in the worst cases, complete catastrophic engine failure on a brand whose entire reputation has been built for decades on the opposite outcome. Consumer Reports' 2026 dependability study still handed 5 other Toyota nameplates a segment win this year, making this specific V6's collapse feel even more jarring against the rest of the brand's genuinely strong track record. But a Toyota engine recall this large and this unresolved is genuinely shocking. The final engine on this list got recalled for catching fire, supposedly got fixed, and federal investigators are now looking into it again. Number 3, Kia Sportage and Sorento Gamma 1.6-liter GD-i, the Gamma 1.6-liter GD-i engine fitted to the Kia Sportage and Sorento across several model years, arrived in federal court alongside Hyundai's Theta. Too scandal for a reason. It generates the exact same complaint pattern. The California class action filed as Sarah Palaio versus Hyundai Motor America specifically named the Gamma 1.6-liter GD-i alongside the new Theta, Lambda, and Kappa families, alleging stalling, excessive oil consumption, engine failures, and non-collision fires across the broader Hyundai Kia engine portfolio. That filing directly followed the $1.3 billion Theta 2 settlement, suggesting plaintiffs' attorneys found the same fundamental defect fingerprints visible in a second engine family. The oil consumption problem in Gamma 1.6-liter owner complaints follows a pattern independent mechanics recognize immediately: piston rings failing to seal against cylinder walls, oil seeping into the combustion chamber, carbon deposits accelerating internal wear, and engines consuming a quart or more of oil per 1,000 miles, while the dashboard warning light stays completely dark. Consumer Reports' investigation into Hyundai Kia engine fire risk specifically identified the 1.6-liter Gamma GD-i among the engine families covered by extended warranty benefits, a tacit acknowledgement that the failure mode extends well beyond the Theta 2 generation the headlines focused on. Kia 2017 to 2021. Sportage owners received separate NHTSA-coordinated park outside advisories tied to engine fire risk, a federal directive that no owner of a vehicle marketed on fuel efficiency ever expects to receive. But a Korean 4-cylinder with a park outside order is alarming enough. The next engine wears an American performance badge, and it's been generating oil leak fires in the Expedition for 2 consecutive recall campaigns. Number 2, Ford Expedition 3.5-liter EcoBoost V6. 2026, Ford's twin-turbocharged 3.5-liter EcoBoost Phi-6, the flagship engine of the Expedition and Lincoln Navigator, has now generated 2 separate recall campaigns for the same fundamental failure mode within a 12-month window, both covering misaligned engine cup plugs that produce a rapid, catastrophic oil leak capable of causing an underhood fire if that oil contacts hot exhaust components. The first recall, issued in late 2024, covered approximately 2,400 F-150, Expedition, and Navigator units. The second, issued in April 2025, expanded the affected population to cover additional 2024 to 2025 build windows, meaning Ford's production line was inserting defective cup plugs into its own flagship engine across multiple consecutive production runs without catching the misalignment before vehicles shipped. The immediate hazard is documented. A misaligned cup plug dislodges under oil pressure. The engine loses oil rapidly, and if that oil stream contacts an ignition source such as the turbocharger or exhaust manifold, the result is an underhood fire. An active class action lawsuit filed in mid-2025 covers the broader EcoBoost lineup across the 1.5-liter, 2.0-liter, 2.3-liter, and 3.5-liter variants, with plaintiffs alleging misfires, power loss, and total engine failures occurring far earlier in vehicle life than any reasonable buyer anticipated. Separate NHTSA Recall 2-6 V122, issued in March 2026, covered more than 83,000 additional Ford vehicles across the Explorer, Ranger, and Bronco Sport for EcoBoost fire risk. Confirming the problem is structural across the platform, not limited to a single production window. But 2 recalls on the same flagship engine within 12 months is alarming. The final engine on this list got recalled for catching fire, supposedly got fixed, and federal investigators reopened the case anyway because the repair didn't actually work. Number 1, GM L87 6.2-liter V8. The L87 6.2-liter V8 fitted to current generation Cadillac Escalade, Chevrolet Tahoe and Suburban, and GMC Yukon Denali models, triggered a recall covering nearly 600,000 full-size trucks and SUVs in April 2025 after tens of thousands of owner complaints and direct federal safety scrutiny. At the center of the defect sits a catastrophic loss of lubrication between the crankshaft and its bearings, a failure that produces sudden, violent engine knock, complete loss of propulsion, and in documented cases, actual engine fires. GM's official remedy involves checking for a specific diagnostic trouble code, and if it's present, replacing the entire engine. If the code isn't present, dealers simply drain the factory 0W20 oil and replace it with heavier 0W40 oil, alongside a new oil cap, specifying the updated requirement going forward. That fix leaves owners paying more for premium viscosity oil that actively reduces fuel economy, a genuinely frustrating trade-off for buyers who paid Denali trim prices well into the $60,000 to $80,000 range expecting a fully resolved problem. One 2025 Escalade ESV Sport owner, posting in a Cadillac forum just months after taking delivery, described the moment the engine failed at only 7,800 miles. Made a short trip about 80 miles from the house and the motor started stalling out. Check engine light came on. Motor started knocking. Pulled over within a minute trying to find a safe place off the road. Brand new broke down Escalade. Embarrassing. A separate, even more extreme teardown documented an Escalade ESV Platinum, stickered near $100,000, suffering a head gasket failure traced directly to microscopic manufacturing flaws on the crankshaft itself at just 9,000 miles on the odometer. Federal safety regulators reopened their investigation into this exact engine in January 2026, after learning that vehicles which had already received the official recall repair were continuing to fail in the field, meaning the fix GM rolled out to 500,000 vehicles may not actually be solving the underlying defect at all. A 6-figure Escalade, a recalled engine, an official repair, and a federal investigation reopened anyway because the repair didn't actually work. That's where this list ends in 2026. 12 SUV engines climbing from a stretched timing chain on an aging 4-cylinder all the way to a 6-figure flagship V8 that's still failing after its own official recall repair. Turbocharging, direct injection, and variable compression all promised more power and better efficiency. For a genuinely alarming number of engines on this list, they delivered exactly that right up until the moment they didn't. Which one shocked you the most? Tell us in the comments and subscribe, because we're not done digging through the recalls nobody's talking about loudly enough.